Well, it took until almost August, but we are finally seeing the Tyler ONeill that the Orioles signed in the offseason. His power leading the O's to a series win over the Rockies. And I'll recap all three games coming up on this episode of the Locked On Orioles podcast.
You are Locked On Orioles, your daily Baltimore Orioles podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey there, Orioles fans. Today is Monday, July 28th, 2025, and welcome back into the Locked On Orioles podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. As always, I'm your host, Connor Newcomb, and coming up on today's episode, we are going to recap the Orioles series victory over the lowly Colorado Rockies this weekend after somehow, some way losing that game on Friday. I still can't believe that they did. They stormed back to a historic blowout win on Saturday and then finished the job with a win on Sunday to take the series. I'll get you everything you need to know from all three games, including a little bit of a blip from Dean Kramer, some great starts from Trevor Rogers and Tomoyuki Sugano, and a finally red-hot bat from Tyler ONeill. But that's all coming up on this episode of the Locked On Orioles podcast, which is brought to you by Monarch Money. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONMLB at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. So the Orioles have not been playing good baseball lately, and they returned home after losing 3 of 4 in Cleveland, just barely squeaking away with a win on Thursday afternoon to avoid the mop. The good news was that, even though the Orioles were well below 500 and it was becoming very clear that this team is going to be selling at the deadline, they were playing the Colorado Rockies. They've got the worst record by far in Major League Baseball. They were on pace for most of the season to have the worst record ever. This is a terrible baseball team, and you're not playing them in Colorado at Coors Field where things can get weird. You're playing them at home, and it felt like, hey, if the O's are going to sweep somebody, now is the time. Unfortunately, that didn't happen because the Orioles somehow lost 6-5 on Friday night to the Rockies to open up this series. So let's begin with that one, starting with what went right from that Orioles loss on Friday night. What went right was the Orioles did at least find their home run swing in this game. The O's hit 4 solo home runs in the first 2 innings against Rockies left-handed starter Kyle Freeland. Jordan Westburg, Tyler ONeill, Coby Mayo, and Alex Jackson each hit a solo homer in the first 2 innings. And the cool one for Mayo, his coming in the second to make it 3-0 Orioles, his first homer off an actual pitcher. Now, they both count the same, but his first career home run about a month ago was off Rays position player Jose Caballero pitching for Tampa in a blowout Orioles win. So cool for Mayo to get one off an actual pitcher. And he had a big weekend, 3 for 7, a double, or 3 for 7, 2 doubles, a homer, 3 RBIs, 1 walk, and 0 strikeouts. Jacob Calvin-Meyer of the Baltimore Sun actually pointed out on Sunday that there's been a bit of a stance change for Mayo. He's standing a little bit taller. His feet aren't as wide, and he's seemingly hitting better. He's got an 835 OPS in July. So big weekend for Mayo. And then for Tyler ONeill, it was just a continuation of heating up this week, which we will certainly get to in a little bit. But for the Orioles, it was the first time this season that they have hit 4 home runs against a left-handed pitcher in a single game, and just the 5th time all year that the Orioles have hit 4 or more homers against any type of pitcher in a single game. And the last time they did it was that game I just mentioned, June 27th against the Rays, the 22-8 win. The Orioles had 4 homers in that one, but 2 of them came against Caballero, the position player. So the last time the Orioles hit 4 homers in the game against actual pitchers, you got to go back to May 4th against the Royals. That is the last time it happened. It's been a long, long time since the Orioles tapped into the power like this, and it hasn't been a full power outage. They are still 11th in home runs in the major leagues this year. It's one of the things the offense has actually done fairly well, but the power is still down. I mean, this team was 2nd in homers in 2024. They're down to 11th. They don't really have any big home run hitters. Like right now, 15 home runs would lead this team. That's not where you want to be when you're about to enter August. So it was nice to see them hit the ball out of the ballpark. Now, what went wrong from Friday is that despite a 4-0 lead from all those solo homers, Dean Kramer just did not have it in this game. It was honestly a very annoying loss in that way because of how good Kramer has been lately. Entering Friday's start, he had a 2.98 ERA since May 1st, after he did admittedly have a disastrous April, and specifically a 2.00 ERA in his last 6 outings. And then he gets a 4-0 lead heading into the third inning, 2 good scoreless innings to start the game against the Rockies. All stats pretty much point to them being the worst offense in Major League Baseball this year, especially when they are on the road. And then all of a sudden, he gives up a solo homer in the third. He gives up a 2-run homer in the fourth. Then he gets a couple of outs in the fifth, can't finish the inning. 2 more runs score, and all of a sudden you look up, it's 5-4 Rockies just like that in the fifth inning. And you're kind of like, where did this go? Now, the Orioles offense could have added on some more, which they didn't. But I don't know, it just didn't have it. Now, if you're looking for, okay, Connor, he's been so good lately, what was the reason that, and you do have to give Kramer a little credit because he still, it wasn't a full blow up. He still pitched 6 innings, but 6 innings, 5 runs, 6 hits, 5 Ks, 2 walks, and 2 homers on 92 pitches for Dean. And he only allowed 5 hard hit balls. It's not like the Rockies were crushing him. So if you're wondering what was going on, well, he did not have his best pitch. He didn't really use the splitter. He threw it only 8 times out of those 92 pitches. All 4 of his other offerings, he threw more than the splitter. And for Dean, you're either going to see him throw that splitter most or second most among all of his pitches. Some of it could have been that the Rockies, they're a very right-handed heavy offense. They had 6 righties out of the 9 batters in the lineup. And the splitter for Kramer is really more of a weapon against left-handed hitters than it is against righties. But the splitter's just been so good at times for Dean over the past 3 months that he's thrown it against righties with success this year. So throwing it only 8 times on Friday tells me he just didn't have the feel of that pitch and felt that he had to go away from it because either he was going to hang it in the middle of the plate or just couldn't throw it anywhere close to the strike zone to make it be effective. And sometimes this happens to starting pitchers. You come out of the bullpen, even you might even have a feel for the pitch when you're warming up in the pen, and then you hit the mound and you just lose a pitch. This happens from time to time. It's unfortunate when it is your best pitch, your swing and miss pitch, your strikeout pitch, when you don't have that thing, and to get strikeouts, you kind of rely on that thing. A major league pitcher can really get beat by any MLB team. Even the 2025 Rockies, when you don't have the splitter, you wouldn't like to do it. You'd like for him to be able to fight a little bit more and give a few fewer runs even without that pitch. But as long as Dean has his splitter back, I predict a bounce back in his next start. It's just not good for him to have that one. Now, again, the Orioles offense got those 4 solo homers, and they scored only once more for the rest of the game against Rockies pitching. They easily could have allowed 6 runs in this game and still won, and they didn't do that. But just to be the Rockies, Dean being so good, getting a 4-0 lead early and still losing this game just feels crazy. But the shout out for Friday's game, the shout out goes to Alex Jackson. I mentioned he had one of those 4 solo home runs. He hit one in the second to make it a 4-0 game, absolutely crushing that ball 419 feet. Jackson is showing something. He showed some incredible bat speed on that swing, an 80.1 mile per hour bat speed. MLB average is 72 miles an hour. He on average is at 77.2 miles an hour on the season. If he was qualified, which he's not because he barely had any at-bats, that would be the 4th best average bat speed of any qualified hitter in Major League Baseball this year. Like, that's absurd. He's got a crazy high 21% barrel rate so far this year. There are a lot of tools in his bat, and Jackson is still only 29 years old. This is why, as I've talked about, the O's went and got Jackson, plucked him out of AAA with the Yankees because they were just running out of catchers. This is why Jackson was a top pick out of high school, former top catching prospect years ago, and he's bounced around the big leagues with multiple different teams, but has never stuck even as a starting catcher. I mean, he's been a team's backup catcher for stretches, but never even been a bad starting catcher. Hasn't even been able to be that good, even though the tools are there. It's because there's been so much swing and miss, and there's some questions about his defense, and the offense hasn't been there really despite the tools. But he had a 96 mile per hour line out in the 4th. He had a 103 mile per hour double in the 7th. That double in the 7th was big. Ended up scoring the tying run on a Jackson Holiday RBI single to even the game at 5 in that 7th inning. And I just think, Adley Rutschman is still not back. Tony Mansolino said there was a chance he would return this weekend against the Rockies. He's playing in rehab games in AAA. He did catch back-to-back days. He caught on Friday and Saturday, which was kind of the final hurdle they wanted him to get over before coming to the big leagues. Now, that doesn't mean they're going to activate him Sunday because he caught Saturday night, so he probably wasn't going to play on Sunday either way. So for Rutschman, the goal would be, and he did not play in Norfolk on Sunday, the goal would be that hopefully we see him activated at home tonight against the Blue Jays, and that would be awesome. And the O's are kind of carrying Jackson in Stallings right now, and Jackson's played more over the past week, Jackson started 4 games and Jacob Stallings started 3 for good measure because Jackson is actually hitting the ball. He homered again on Saturday night, which we'll get to. And Stallings just is not doing that. So maybe Stallings brings the more veteran presence, more big league experience, in some ways a little better defensively. But Jackson threw a runner out on Sunday. He's got a strong arm. He's got a really good pop time. He's 29. Like, Chadwick Tromp seems to be okay with the back issue. He was playing in rehab games. The Orioles then outrighted him off the 40-man roster, and he elected free agency. So Tromp right now, coming back from that injury, is no longer in the organization. So at the moment, he's not an option to be the backup for the O's when Adley comes back. I mean, Gary Sanchez is going to be out for most of, if not the rest of the year. It seems like at best we see him at some point in September. So even if Adley comes back, you still need another catcher. And it's probably not going to be Basayo just yet. I would keep Jackson around. I would DFA Jacob Stallings and keep Alex Jackson around. He's got the tools. He's swinging the bat well. Like, it's kind of impressive to see what he's doing. And somehow, the O's give up that late run in the 8th and just still can't believe they found a way to lose this game on Friday night. But showing some signs, did Alex Jackson, that it could be something. And I'm not going to say it's going to be anything long term. And he's fooled a couple of teams before. But even though this is a short stretch, like, he's never really had a stretch that's even been this good in the big leagues, which we'll certainly get to in the next segment. Because Alex Jackson, despite not even starting on Saturday, still played a role in the Orioles win. And it was a historic win. And it seemed like they maybe got some frustration out because they also couldn't believe they lost on Friday night. They turned around and won 18-0 on Saturday. It'll be a fun recap of that one coming up next. But first, this episode of the Locked On Orioles podcast is brought to you by Monarch Money. Ever wish managing your money felt easier? Well, with Monarch Money, it can. Whether you're growing your savings or planning a big purchase, Monarch puts you in the driver's seat. It's like having your own personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. And Monarch Money is more than a budgeting app. It's a complete financial command center. You can track all of your accounts, investments, and spending in one place. So in addition to managing your money, you're also building wealth. For me, the best part about Monarch Money is that I share finances with my wife, and Monarch helps us just stay on the same page. The app makes everything easier and puts it all in one place for us. So take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONMLB at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONMLB for half off your first year. So after a quite disappointing loss to the Rockies, the worst team in baseball, on Friday night, the Orioles got that frustration out and turned things around on Saturday. A historic 18-0 win over Colorado on Saturday, even this series up at 1 game apiece. And I'm going to get you the 5 things you need to know from that wild Saturday blowout win. And the first thing you need to know is Trevor Rogers is just incredible right now. Once again, he goes out there and gets it done for the Orioles. 7 scoreless innings of 1 hit ball, 5 strikeouts to 1 walk, 96 pitches thrown, just 5 hard hit balls against him. He's got a 1.49 ERA in 8 starts with the Orioles this season. I mean, what a resurgence it has been. That is now his 4th scoreless start out of the 8 he's thrown. And he was getting some swing and miss. The 28% whiff rate overall he had was his 3rd best of the year. Got 8 whiffs on that 4-seamer. That 4-seamer basically sitting 93, 94. That ride on that ball was just humming, and Rockies hitters were swinging either behind it or under it just time and time again. But it really hasn't been about the swing and miss all year. That's not really how he's been getting it done. His velocity was even down about a mile per hour across the board in Saturday's start. What it was about again on Saturday, is he's just been throwing strikes and throwing quality strikes. The one and only walk he had in that game was in the 7th inning. It was a 13-pitch plate appearance against Rocky shortstop Ezequiel Tovar. And the 13th pitch on 3-2 was a changeup that missed just inside off the plate that Tovar somehow took after fouling off like 8 straight pitches, took it for ball 4 for a leadoff walk, and then Rogers immediately erased him by rolling a double play ball. That was the only walk. It was a 13 pitches that it took for him to actually walk a batter. And speaking of that ground ball double play, it's been about throwing strikes. And when he's given up contact, he's getting ground balls. He only had 5 ground ball outs in this game, which is actually a little low for him. But his 51% ground ball rate is the 2nd highest of his career. And despite coming into Saturday, like Rogers was allowing a hard hit rate just shy of 53%. That is not good. No starting pitcher has allowed a higher hard hit rate in the majors this year, but Rogers is making it work because of a 51% ground ball rate. A very low 5% barrel rate means you can give up hard contact, but if the ball is hit hard on the ground, those balls are usually outs. That's why we talk about from a hitting analysis perspective. If guys aren't hitting the ball in the air, sometimes it doesn't matter how hard they hit it. Same thing for a pitcher. You can give up hard contact, but if that hard contact is on the ground most of the time, you are and you're throwing strikes, you're not giving up free passes, you are going to have success. Because what's the best thing that can happen on a grounder? Maybe a ground ball down the line turns into a double. Most ground ball hits are singles, though, to get through the holes. If you hit the ball in the air, doubles, triples, homers come alive, and that's why he's barely given up any long balls this year, which really helps you. You're not walking guys, you're not giving up home runs, you're keeping the ball on the ground. You can get away with giving up a lot of hard contact if it's being beaten directly into the ground, and that is what Rogers is doing, and it's incredible to see this turnaround and what the O's have turned him into. Just got him healthy, got his mechanics right, and he is one of the best pitchers in Major League Baseball over these past 8 starts, and that is crazy to say that about Trevor Rogers, thinking about what he was just 11 months ago when he first came over to Baltimore. Second thing you need to know from Saturday's win is that Tyler ONeill is red hot. Mentioned that he had the home run and the double on Friday in the loss. That was good, but then he made it 3 consecutive multi-hit games with a big Saturday as well. Smoked another home run, a 2-run shot down the left field line in the second off of Rocky starter Antonio Senzatella. First time this year that ONeill had homered in back-to-back games. Then he walked twice later in the game and then had an RBI single in the 7th with the bases loaded that added to the Oriole League. Third time this season he's reached base at least 4 times in a game. And ONeill has just been astounding. This was entering Sunday, so this doesn't even include the home run he hit Sunday. 8 for 21 with 5 extra base hits in his previous 6 games. And now you can add what he did Sunday, 9 for 24 with 6 extra base hits in his previous 7 games. He had 7 total extra base hits in his first 30 games of the season before entering this stretch. He's got a hard hit rate well over 50%. He has only struck out 3 times in that 7-game stretch, which is even more surprising and helpful for Tyler ONeill, who's always running pretty large strikeout rates. And it's crazy to think, but he hits the ball hard. He's always hit the ball hard. Even this year, with the struggles, he's had a really high barrel rate, and he's putting the bat on the ball in the right places when he gets the bat on the ball with a 17% barrel rate and the good bat speed that he has. But he's got to make contact, and he hasn't been making a lot of that contact this year. But it's crazy what he can do when he does, because he's cut his strikeouts tremendously. He's putting the ball in play. He's swinging at good pitches. And oh, look at that. Tyler ONeill has a 933 OPS in the month of July. That is the kind of hitter the Orioles brought in, and they are finally seeing it. They're finally seeing it, and he did more of it on Sunday. Third thing you need to know from this win is that the Orioles made history, which we'll get to, but Cedric Mullins made his own Orioles history in this game. Got a fastball in the inside corner from Senzatella in the 4th inning and launched it into the flag court for a 3-run home run that really kind of broke the game open in the 4th, giving the Orioles a 6-0 lead at the time. But also for Mullins, it gave him career home run number 100. Of course, all of them in an Orioles uniform. The only team he's played for is set to be a free agent after this year. Obviously, some trade rumors surrounding him leading up to the deadline on Thursday. But he became just the 3rd Orioles player ever to hit 100 home runs and steal at least 100 bases in an Orioles uniform, as Mullins has 139 career steals as well. The only 2 other players to do it are Brady Anderson and Paul Blair. Those are the only other 2. That is some great company for Cedric Mullins to be in. And whether Cedric gets traded this week or maybe he finishes out the season, but then he leaves and signs somewhere else in free agency, it seems fairly likely 2025 in some capacity will be his final year as an Oriole, at least for now. It's going to go down as a pretty underrated Orioles career. Obviously, you have the 30-30 season in there, but he's been a good, productive player, and it's been a rough go of it for Cedric recently. I mean, a 184 average and a 55 WRC plus since May 1st entering Saturday's game. But hey, that was a cool moment. It was his first home run since July 4th. And guess what? He also added one of his signature defensive plays, made an incredible diving catch in the third inning, going back into his right, the catch that Trevor Rogers called the best catch he's ever seen. Now, Mullen said after the game he thought his catch against the Twins on Jackie Robinson Day last year was better, which go watch the video. I still think that 2024 catch is better, but that was another absurd play by Mullins and a cool day for him in the midst of a tough season since his red-hot April. He's kind of fallen off mostly since then. Fourth thing you need to know from the Orioles' 18-0 win over the Rockies on Saturday is that the Orioles offense set a whole lot of records as well. I've got some cool stats for you here. 18-0 is the largest shutout victory in Orioles history. The biggest previous one was July 27th, 1969, when the Orioles beat the White Sox 17-0. Frank Robinson had 2 homers and 5 RBIs in that one. And Orioles starting pitcher Jim Harden, as a hitter, remember this is pre-DH, went 3 for 4 with a 3-run home run in that game with the bat in his hands. And of course, he pitched a good game as well, helping with the shutout. It was one of 2 home runs, and actually 3 in his career, but Jim Harden hit 2 home runs in that 69 season for the Orioles, helping that team get to the World Series. The other one was a walk-off homer. He had a walk-off home run May 10th of that year against Kansas City in the bottom of the 9th inning as a relief pitcher. He was in the game as a reliever. He had pitched an inning and 2/3 scoreless to keep the game tied. And the Orioles and our reliever let him hit in the bottom of the 9th because he could swing it a little bit. And he went yard to win the game. Kind of a tragic story is Jim Harden's life. Got a chance to kind of learn more about him. You know, in his late 40s, he was really big into golfing and really big into flying his own planes, and had an engine failure when he was on a flight, ended up crashing and passing away, I believe, back in the 90s. But it was widely reported that Harden avoided, when that plane was going down, he avoided a baseball field full of young children and kind of diverted the plane enough to keep them safe. So kind of definitely a heroic but tragic end for him learning about that. But he could pitch it, he could swing it, and that's the first time I've seen Jim Harden. You know, he was on those Orioles teams. He won on that World Series team in 1970. But kind of the first I'd heard about him in his Orioles career. Definitely love baseball history as well, and obviously a bit of a tragic end for him. But always cool to learn about another Oriole. But more history from Saturday. Alex Jackson, mentioned him. He came in as a pinch hitter in the 8th inning. The Rockies were using a position player at that point. Kyle Farmer was on the mound, and Jackson hit a solo home run to make it 18-0. Hit Happy Gilmore style. Farmer was doing the lob and the ball up to the plate, and I guess in honor of Happy Gilmore 2 being released this week or so on Netflix, Alex Jackson does the 2-step into the swing and launches it out to right center field for a home run. How about Alex Jackson? His first 7 hits as an Oriole are extra base hits. That is an Orioles record. The major league record with a new team is 8. A few players have done it, and Jackson did not get another hit on Sunday, so it's still the first 7 are extra base hits. The previous Orioles record was 5 consecutive extra base hits to start with a team. That was when Orioles legend Kelly Johnson did it back in 2014. Alex Jackson on a Kelly Johnson trajectory at this point. He's also played for a lot of the AL East teams. Johnson played for all 5 of them. How about this stat? The Orioles played 12 of their 13 position players. Only Ramon Urias did not appear in Saturday's game. All 12 Orioles had a hit and scored a run in this game. That is a record for the modern era of Major League Baseball. Never has a team in the modern era played 12 players in a game in terms of position players and had them all get at least 1 hit and score at least 1 run. That's how historic this game was. How about the 7th inning, right? The Orioles were kind of cruising along this whole game anyway, but they blew it open with a 9-run 7th inning. That was the most runs the Orioles have scored in a single inning since they scored 9 runs in the 6th inning against the Angels back on March 30th of 2024. That was game 2 of last season. 12 runs in an inning is the franchise record. That was in the 6th inning on April 11th, 2002 against the Tampa Bay Rays. And then finally, Gunnar Henderson, 2 doubles in the 7th inning alone. I was kind of struggling to find the last time that happened for an Oriole, but it's certainly cool as Gunnar is heating up. And then also the offense, they just put the ball in play. The offense struck out just 4 times in this game. That is tied for their lowest total in a single game this season. But the funny thing is, this was the lowest strikeout rate they've had in any game. Because think about the amount of at-bats they had to score 18 runs and still only strike out 4 times. This is their best contact game of the season, and it led to 18 on the board and the biggest shutout win in Orioles history. And the fifth and final thing you need to know from that crazy 18-0 win over the Rockies on Saturday is that the Oriole bullpen didn't mess around. After 7 strong from Rogers, Yarmiel Geraldo, who was just recalled to replace Jeremiah Jackson on the roster on Saturday, threw a scoreless 8th, and Cade Stroud came in for a scoreless 9th to finish the game. The pitching staff in total allowed just 2 hits. That was the fewest allowed by the pitching staff in a single game for the Orioles this season. And hey, Geraldo and Stroud are guys who are going to get more chances in this bullpen down the stretch. And good to see them both throw up zeros to claim the win on Saturday. So the Orioles then had a chance to go for the series on Sunday. And while it wasn't as easy, it wasn't nearly as big of a blowout, the Orioles got the job done with a 5-1 win Sunday to take the series. And I'll tell you how they did it coming up next. But first, this episode of the Locked On Orioles podcast is also brought to you by Game Day Hugh. For Orioles fans like me, this is one that really hits the mark. Game Day Hugh makes clean, no-logo gear with team-inspired colorways for every pro and college fan base. It's all about letting your colors speak for you. No giant logos, just smart, versatile style that works on game day, on the course, or anywhere in between. I love the couple of hats I got from Game Day Hugh because it pairs perfectly with the usual gear. Like, it doesn't replace the team logo stuff. It just adds to the lineup. You can wear it more places without the big giant logo. I really do like the products that they've got. It's not just hats. You can check out their split shade gloves made for the golf course, or the perfect gift for the fan who has everything. I'm not a golfer, but I gifted them to my brother, who very much is. And right now you can get 15% off with code MLB15 at GameDayHugh.com. That's GameDayHue.com. The code even stacks on bundle deals, so now is the time to load up. Let your colors talk, because colors speak louder than words. That's GameDayHue.com. Code MLB15. So for the Orioles, got the win Saturday to even the series, and got the win Sunday 5-1 over the Rockies to take home a series win. They are still sellers. They are still not making the postseason. It's still not going to happen, but they are now at 47-58 is their record on the season, with their first series win since the All-Star break. And I'm going to get you the 5 things you need to know from this Sunday series clinching victory. And the first thing you need to know is Tomoyuki Sugano found his swing and miss stuff once again. Now, you certainly have to caveat this with it being the Rockies have the worst offense in baseball. The Orioles just shut them out on Saturday. But Sugano went out there and tied his season high with 8 strikeouts. Final line for Tomo in this one: 6 innings, 1 run on 4 hits, 8 Ks, 2 walks, and a home run allowed on 91 pitches, 5 hard hit balls by the Rockies hitters in this one. He was getting some swing and miss. Now, the splitter was better. That definitely helped. That's his bread and butter, but he threw 3 different pitches more than he threw the splitter. Really, the difference maker was the sweeper that did the work for him on Sunday. Got 6 whiffs on 14 swings against that sweeper. And it really had to do with the construction of the Rockies lineup. I've mentioned already, they're very right-handed heavy. 7 right-handed hitters in the Rockies starting 9 on Sunday. And the splitter is more so a pitch for lefties than righties. That sweeper is his whiff pitch against righties, and he went to it. And the Rockies just time and time. I mean, he didn't throw it in the strike zone a lot. He threw it in the strike zone less than 40% of the time. But the Rockies just kept chasing that sweeper because he would start it on the outer half and he'd sweep it off the corner, and they would just swing and miss, swing and miss, swing and miss all day. And it wasn't just that. It was velocity was way up. Like, he was up almost 2 miles an hour across the board on all of his pitches. Sugano was up to 96 with the fastball a few times on Sunday. That is not something we've seen very much this season. Now, command was still an issue. He still had just a 45% in-zone rate. That is not good. And he still did walk 2 batters, which you don't love to see from Sugano. But if he's going to miss bats like he did on Sunday and get strikeouts, it's much easier to get away with shakier command than Sugano has been used to in Japan, or than he was used to when he was really rolling along early on this season with the Orioles. Now, I don't think 1 start is enough to make another team want to trade for Sugano. It's been 2 good starts out of 3, counting the one right before the deadline where he pitched well against the Mets too. But it's after Sunday, it's more possible, I'll say that he gets traded before Thursday's deadline. He's definitely someone that the Orioles will be willing to trade, as he is also a rental piece. But just because of how bad he had been in his past, 7-8 starts or so, I just didn't really think someone would want him. I still don't think that's the case, but I guess it's a little more possible after seeing him throw the ball like that. At the very least, if he's still an Oriole down the stretch, it'll be nice to have him, if he's pitching better, give them more solid innings and cover those innings for the remainder of the season. Second thing you need to know from Sunday's win is that Tyler ONeill homered again. This one off another lefty, the lefty Austin Gomber, who got the start for the Rockies in this one. And ONeill launching a 2-run shot in the third inning off Gomber deep into the seats in left field to put the Orioles up 4-1. Ball traveled 433 feet, his second longest home run of the year. And he hit it 113.6 miles an hour off the bat in terms of his exit velocity. Not only was that his hardest hit ball as an Oriole by far, his previous was 109.3 on Friday. Even more impressive, that 113.6 off the bat for ONeill, who's been in the big league since he got called up by the Cardinals in 2018, and is known for crushing the baseball. That was the hardest hit ball of Tyler ONeill's big league career. Previously, it was 113.1. He reached 113.6 in this one. It's truly amazing what he can do when he's healthy and making contact. Strikeouts are low, OPS well over 900 now in the month of July. Even with him having the general soreness, which made him miss 2 games in Cleveland last week, he is now homered in 3 consecutive games. Hit the ball out of the ballpark in all 3 games against the Rockies this season. And I understand it's the Rockies. It's one of the worst pitching staffs in baseball. I get that. But that is only the 3rd time in ONeill's career that he has homered in 3 consecutive games. Did it twice in his awesome 2021 season and once as a rookie in 2018. Of course, all 3 of those times in a Cardinals uniform. And he's never homered 4 games in a row. So watch out for tonight against the Blue Jays. I'm sure he'll be in the lineup. We'll see if he can make some history, but he is... This is the Oriole, right? This is the guy the Orioles signed to a 3-year deal, about $50 million this offseason. This is the guy they saw for a lot of the time in Boston when he was healthy last year. You know he's going to get hurt some, but when he's healthy, you expect him to look like this. It took till late July, but we are finally seeing it. Third thing you need to know from Sunday's win is that Dylan Carlson made the most of a rare start in the Orioles lineup. Carlson was actually recalled from AAA earlier this week when ONeill was dealing with that general soreness and missed a couple of games. And Sunday was just his 3rd start in the month of July. He spent a good chunk in AAA. And even when he's been up there, Colton Cowser, Cedric Mullins, Tyler ONeill, Ramon Laureano are all healthy for the Orioles right now. So just not a lot of space for Carlson. It's kind of how it was right at the very beginning of the season. But he did have an RBI single coming off the bench in the Saturday blowout win, and he kept it going, getting the start on Sunday. A 2-run single in the second off of Gomber gave the Orioles a 2-1 lead. It was the first multi-RBI game in the big leagues for Carlson since he did it on June 6th in Sacramento. He has just 3 of them all season for the Orioles. And Carlson came to Baltimore as a switch hitter who had always been better from the right side of the plate, always been better against left-handed pitching in his career. Hasn't been the case this year. Just a 48 WRC plus from the left side of the plate this season. Just 7 for 33 with 1 extra base hit against lefties coming into Sunday. It's nice to see him get a big swing in that spot against a lefty. And he's kind of in an interesting spot here around the deadline. There's a chance that all 3 of Ryan O'Hearn, Ramon Laureano, and Cedric Mullins, all outfield options, get traded at the deadline. And if that happens, fans are definitely going to want to see Dylan Beavers get a shot. Maybe there's a chance we'd see, although he's really struggling in AAA too, see Heston Kjerstad get another shot back in the big leagues. But it could really mean just some more playing time for Dylan Carlson as well. He's really held his own with a bat after the O's signed him to that cheap 1-year deal in the offseason, trying to have him be like a post-sleeper breakout. He's still, in his mid-20s. There's still a lot of baseball ahead of him, he hopes, in his career. And maybe the Orioles can give him a little more runway, more consistent playing time down the stretch after the deadline if they make some trades. And maybe they find that, hey, Carlson could be a really good 4th outfielder to have on this team going into 2026. And you get more at-bats, it makes it easier to potentially make that decision. Fourth thing you need to know from Sunday's game is that Gunnar Henderson made some of the coolest plays of the season in this one. Didn't do a whole lot on offense, although he did single and walk and is now hitting .301 with an .851 OPS in July, following up his .902 OPS in June. Yeah, we are seeing, after a slow start in the injury, we are seeing the real good version of Gunnar Henderson right now. But at shortstop on Sunday, he also made an awesome diving play in the 3rd, made an awesome barehanded play to get an out in the top of the 9th. And he's still not grading great in terms of the metrics at shortstop this year, but he certainly, we know he can show off the tools, and he did it on Sunday. And then came to play in the 8th inning. Gunnar was on second base with 1 out. Orioles leading 4-1 at the bottom of the 8th. He was on there after an error. And Jaden Hill, the Rockies pitcher, throws a wild pitch. He gets by Austin Knoll, the catcher, goes to the backstop. Obviously, Gunnar takes off and goes to 3rd. But the Rockies' battery kind of fell asleep. Nola kind of took his time to get to it. Hill never even left the mound to come and cover home plate. Gunnar saw it, never broke stride, rounded third as if he was trying to score on a base hit to the outfield from second base, and sprinted home, diving in safely. And the play wasn't even all that close when they finally flipped it to home, scoring from second on a wild pitch to give the O's an insurance run to go up 5-1. It was just awesome to see the hustle, the effort, everything. And for me, that play was there and out there for every fan who just quote unquote fan with the complaints of these guys don't care, they don't show effort, blah, blah, blah. Like, watch that play and try to say that again. Like, this is a guy who's putting his everything out there on the line when he needs to, and Gunnar Henderson. I promise you they care. I promise you they hate the fact that they are 47-58 and going to be sellers at the deadline right now. And Gunnar's still going to go out there and play that hard every day, and he's showing it in the stats. He's also showing it in plays like that, scoring on a routine wild pitch from second base. Still awesome to see that level of just effort, too, when the season has gone the way that it did. And the fifth and final thing you need to know from the Orioles' 5-1 win over the Rockies on Sunday that clinched a series win is that the big names in the bullpen closed it out for the Orioles. After the trade of Brian Baker and then the trade of Gregory Soto to the Mets on Friday, I did do kind of an emergency episode on Friday night. You can find it wherever you listen to pods. You can find it here on the Locked On Orioles YouTube channel. The breakdown of Gregory Soto with two pitching prospects coming back to the Orioles from the Mets in that deal. So there's even less kind of big name relievers left in this bullpen. And because Felix Bautista was also placed on the IL on Thursday, there's really three big names left. It's Yennier Cano, it's Andrew Kittredge, and Seranthony Dominguez, and they handled responsibilities on Sunday. Cano with a scoreless seventh, Kittredge a scoreless eighth, and Dominguez a scoreless ninth to close things out. All three of them allowed base runners, but all three put up zeros. Now, that stretch of pitchers could look different by tomorrow, right? Dominguez could get traded any day. Even Kittredge could be dealt this week. And heck, that might be Dominguez's last outing as an Oriole because the O's have 4 games in 3 days. They do have the doubleheader on Tuesday, so it might make it a little bit harder to do this. But they're going to try their best to stay away from probably even throwing Dominguez again because you know he's going to get traded. You know the Orioles want to trade him. You know other teams want him because he's having a good season. You don't want to risk it where you're kind of out of it. You don't absolutely need to pitch him, and you throw him in a game Tuesday, and he feels some elbow soreness, and then there goes your ability to trade him on Thursday. So that might be it for Dominguez. Even if he doesn't get dealt till Thursday, they will probably try to avoid them if they can. But, Kittredge did give up a run on Friday, ended up being the winning run for the Rockies in the 8th inning. But that was the only run the Oriole bullpen allowed this weekend. 8 innings, 4 hits, 1 run, 11 Ks, and 4 walks. Good weekend for that pen, despite Baker, Soto, Bautista, all not sitting in that bullpen. It's kind of a very different cast of characters out there, but still doing well to get the job done. And these guys we saw Sunday, but more so the other guys are going to have a whole lot of chances, especially with Dominguez probably being gone too down the stretch. And we'll really get to see who could definitely be a piece for this 2026 Orioles bullpen when they get some high leverage spots later this season. But that'll do it for today's episode as the Orioles take 2 out of 3 from the Colorado Rockies this weekend. Next up for the O's is the Toronto Blue Jays. Maybe the hottest team in baseball right now. Also the team that somehow has the best record in the majors. It still doesn't sound right that is the case for the Blue Jays, but they took 2 out of 3 from the Tigers in Detroit this weekend. They come in 63-43 on the year. And in first place, they are 5.5 game up on the Yankees in the AL East. It is absurd what the Blue Jays have been doing lately. The Orioles have played solid baseball against them so far this year, and they've got a 4-game set coming up this week. 1 game Monday, 2 games Tuesday with a doubleheader from a rainout earlier this year, and then 1 game on Wednesday. And it all starts tonight, 6:35 p.m. Eastern Time on MASN. The veteran Chris Bassett will go for the Blue Jays, and Zach Eflin, in what very much could be his final start as an Oriole, at least this year, will take the ball for the O's in his second start coming off the injured list with that back issue. And then I'll be back tomorrow recapping game 1 between the Orioles and the Blue Jays. I will talk a little bit about the draft pick signing deadline. That is actually tonight at 5 p.m. Eastern Time. Just like 4 or 5 guys still unsigned, late round picks for the Orioles. We'll see who they end up clobbering up. Obviously, the big one that we heard about last week is Slater DeBrun did get signed. That was the kind of final big thing to do, but there's still some names out there that the O's would like to secure that they drafted later in the 2025 draft. And I'll talk a little bit about Jose Espada, a pitcher the Orioles signed to a minor league deal this week as well. And if there are any trades either today or the rest of this week leading up to Thursday, I will be doing a live trade deadline show right around 6 p.m. Eastern Time, which is the time of the deadline this Thursday, July 31st. You can watch it live right here on the Locked On Orioles YouTube channel. But if the O's make any deals Monday, Tuesday, or Wednesday, there'll be a potentially live, or at least an episode, like an extra episode going out that day, fully breaking down that trade, just like the one that came out on Friday for the Gregory Soto to the Mets deal. But again, I am still back tomorrow either way. Until then, I'm Connor Newcomb, and this has been the Locked On Orioles podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.